today's session. So welcome everyone who has just joined us for today's reactor session, which is a Power BI introduction reporting on tasks. So today's session is delivered by Laura Graham-Brown, who is in the MVP community. So we're delighted to have Laura back again to deliver another online session with us. Just to give you a bit of a background about the reactors for those of you who aren't aware. So reactors are community hubs for startup and developer communities. So to learn and connect and build on existing skill sets. So the reactors enable this by delivering presentations, industry speakers and technical workshops that are all aimed at emerging technology trends. So reactors are event spaces, so we're physical presences all around the world where we hold these events, but as you can imagine, in recent times we've moved our focus to more of an online presence, so hence we're doing these online sessions. So getting back to today, the session today will be 1 hour long. You have the opportunity to ask any questions you'd like throughout. So there's a Q&A section that I'll pop something in now, and that's where you can ask any questions. They'll be answered throughout the session, and the session is being recorded too. So within about 48 hours, that link will go live onto the Meetup Reactor London page. So that's where I'll post the recording. So I think that's everything from me. I will hand over to our speaker for today to get us started.
Hi, I'm Laura GB. Yeah, Graham Brown's way too long a surname. So I am, as Emma very kindly said, and by the way, guys, when the reactor locations are awesome. When we get back in there, I am so looking forward to being able to go back into the sessions and do some of these in person as well as virtual. So I spend most of my time doing Power BI. I'm a Power BI consultant with a whole lot of Power Apps and Power Automate on the side as well. I stand up and teach all over the place. That's what I do. So if you have any questions, please put them into the chat. I will check on them occasionally and check that they're up there, but I will pause and answer as I can along the way. So a little bit about, let's get PowerPoint to behave. A little bit, there we go. A little bit about me. I'm on Twitter. I usually try and put up new interesting things up there, post some other people as well. I have a blog called Hatful of Data. Yes, I'm a Terry Pratchett fan, for those of you that vaguely recognise where the hatful comes from. And I'm MVP Business Applications. Okay, I got awarded that last year. But for those of you that are interested in resources after this, I apologise, the post isn't quite up there yet. It's not quite finished, but it will be by the end of today on my blog. So that QR code is a link to my blog. There will be a post giving you resources for today, and if there are any questions in chat I can't answer in the limited time we've got, I will put answers up there, and I will put links to that post on my Twitter feed as well. So let's look at, I'm assuming most of you are new to Power BI or at the beginning stages of learning your Power BI. If not, don't worry, we'll do some things along the way that are slightly more advanced. But this is the agenda. Okay, so we're going to talk about getting your data and how that works, transforming your data inside Power Query, all the bits in there to make your data actually into the right shape you want it to be. And then there's modeling, which is done in Power BI Desktop, and that is bringing in how data relates to each other and bringing in some calculations. And we will then go from there to do some visualizers, some pretty bits. This isn't the prettiest of reports today, but it's got a number in there. And then we look at publishing. Now that all looks nice and easy, go from left to right, 5 stages, off we go. But please be aware, it's not an even game, okay? So getting your data according to where you're working and what organisation you're in can be the hardest thing going and take the most time. Hence, it is the biggest at the bottom of our pyramid here. I can't help you much on that because where your data sits within your organisation will be unique to every single organisation going. Modelling and transforming your data is going to take up a really good chunk of your time. I usually kind of accept the fact that's going to take half my time. Getting the data is probably going to take a quarter of my time, which leaves visualizing and publishing is the easy part. You need to get model and transform right, okay? Because that makes your visualizing incredibly easy. And then when you publish up, it will be okay. So before we start up any of that, before you go there at all, why are you doing this? Why are we doing a report at all? What's the purpose of your report? What question is it answering? And that all the guys I work with have got used to that one. They turn around and go, Laura, we've got a blah, 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 blah. And they go, yeah, Laura, okay. The purpose is, the question we want to answer is, they have that question ready. So today, we're going to go with three simple questions, okay? How much work is complete and remaining on my project? Okay, so the work hours. How many tasks are late? And how much is it going to cost? Okay, now I've been involved for the past year in quite a big project, and I'm basically the reporting consultant for them. And these are the very, very basic questions. We've gone on to a lot more complicated questions than this, but these are the very basics of what I was asked for right at the beginning. So my data today. Getting data. Okay, now I've just gone for the Microsoft platforms for task management here. So here are all the different places it could have been. So we could be coming up from, we could be going from project into publishing it up to a PWA site in SharePoint and pumping that into Power BI. That's possible. It's no data connection. We could be going for the new project, and that has behind it CDS, or I guess what it's now called is DataFlex Pro, after Inspire, where they renamed it. Or I could be coming from Planner. Unfortunately, from Planner, you have to export to get the data into Excel and bringing that into Power BI. Or there might not be project involved at all. It might just be a SharePoint tasks list. Okay, so there's all sorts of combinations. The one we're going to look at today is kind of the more basic version of it all. And that is, I'm taking data from project and I'm pumping it into Excel. And then I'm connecting Power BI to that Excel. I would prefer to have gone the SharePoint path and done it that way, but that's quite a complicated path and I've only got an hour today. So there will be videos coming talking about the SharePoint version. If they don't appear, pester me on LinkedIn or Twitter or something and come and find me. Okay, so right. So I just checking there was that. I thought there was a question. No, it's a message from Emma. So let's move on and let me just show you. Sorry, next slide. There's another slide. It's bound to be another slide. I don't do sessions on PowerPoint, by the way. PowerPoint is my bane. Demo. That's a good slide. I like that. So let me just show you where the data is coming from and show you what I've done. Okay. So here is Microsoft Project. And so this is the resources view, and I've got a Gantt chart view, and I literally have for this one here, I've copied those columns there. Now I've done a bit of careful bits here. One task has only got one person on it, and there's a few other things that I've made sure just to keep this as a simple as I can. So if I minimize that for a second, I can show you behind the scenes. Here is the Excel file. So I've got on sheet 1 is literally just a copy and paste of that task's information. And on sheet 2, I have got the resources. Okay, so I'm not going to do any tidying up in Excel. I'm just literally using Excel as an easy way for Power BI to get the data. So I've checked all that. That's okay. It's saved. And I'm going to close it because Power BI and Excel don't like sharing. So let's move on to Power BI. So Power BI as a tool is free. Okay. We'll talk about a little bit about licensing later on. I recommend, if you're on Windows 10, to go and install it through the Microsoft Store. It will update automatically. If you install it by going to the Power BI website and downloading it from there, you will have to update it manually. Okay. Now, obviously, I realise some of you are working on work laptops, but if you can convince your work to let you do it from store, that's I would recommend that if you can. Okay. When you first start up Power BI Desktop, you get this yellow box that comes up, and in it, it's got all sorts of things in here. The what's new will give you the latest update. Power BI at the moment is updating monthly. Okay. It's summertime, so the updates aren't too dramatic, but come September, October, when Ignite comes along, I expect to see some nice dramatic updates coming, and then we get some more dramatic updates when NVAS comes along. Okay. But the other thing in this yellow box is tutorials. So if I just quickly click on tutorials, and of course it's going to open in the wrong window because that's what happens. It takes you to here, Microsoft self-learning, guided learning, and here there are fantastic, really good resources written by Microsoft. They would like you to do be able to use it in the best ways possible. They have worked really hard at getting these up there. Okay, there's also the MVP community, as well as the hopefully one day soon to be MVPs out there, do an amazing job as well. Okay, there are all sorts, and I will include on the page from this that's supporting this session lots of links. Okay, but once we've done that, we're gonna I'm gonna close down. Oh, there's videos as well. Okay, there's lots of stuff. So I'm going to close this down for a second. Right, and here we are in Power BI. So the first thing I'm going to do now, there's all sorts of paints here and ribbons and stuff like that. I'm going to talk you through them once I've got something on them interesting to show you. There's nothing there at the minute. The first job we need to do is get some data. I've copied and pasted into Excel already, so I'm going to click on. So I'm on the home ribbon, and I'm going to click on the Excel button for getting data. Power BI can connect to all sorts of data sources. Okay, so there are all sorts in here. Look under the get data for more of them. And project plan, that's what we're going to go for, and click open. So there are my two sheets. I'm going to click on those two sheets, and when you click on them like that, you see a preview here of the first like 200 rows. So I can see both of my ones here. Now, if that data was clean and beautiful, I could just click load and say it's fine. I don't need to do any cleaning. I don't need to do any transforming. But if we look in here, if I just scroll across a little bit, we'll see here I've got a work column there that's got a number followed by hours. That's probably not going to play ball. And I've possibly got some other things in there. I've also got all the summary tasks. I don't want those either. So I need to do some tidying up. So I'm going to go to transform data. And transform data opens up Power Query. And guess what? In the wrong window. So let me just bring Power Query down a second. Into this window. There we go. So, wow, it's small, isn't it? Let's see what we can do about that when we get back into Power BI. So here I am in Power Query. Okay, so I've got on the left hand side here, I have got my two different queries. So my sheet 1 and my sheet 2. Over on the right hand side here, I've got, so this one here is the tasks. So up on the right hand side here is the name, So I can take out that sheet 1. And I can put in tasks. Okay. Press return. And there we are on the left-hand side. We can see it's changed. Now, these applied steps, all the changes that we're about to make add an extra step for everything. So if I go right back up to the source here, it went and got the data out of Excel. It then navigated to that sheet. But if you look in that top row there, you can see that we've only just got we've got the titles of the columns in the first row of the data. So my promoted headers moves that up. OK, and then data types, it goes and guesses. OK, so we're going to go. So the first thing we're going to have a look at. So the first thing is in project. OK, all the tasks. So this very top one, row 1, that's my summary task. OK, so this is an issue in project. It won't be an issue in other tasks lists, but we've got tasks that are summarizing all the other tasks. So that 1,248 hours is the whole project. So I don't want the summary tasks. They're only really there for layout purposes in project. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the ones that say they are a summary task. So click on the down arrow and untick the yes and click OK. And if you look on the right hand side here, there's a filtered rows. And if I click onto that, the little cogwheel that's there, you'll see that it tells you what that filter is. So keep rows where summary equals no. Brilliant. OK, so that's how you can change them. The more steps you can get with cogwheels, the more flexible your report can be. OK, now I am not going to manage to do this for every step today. I would in my normal reports, but what I'm going to show you is I can do a right click on there and I can do a rename, and I'm going to put filter to non-summary, right? And that now shows you that when the steps when I come in looking later, I'll be able to find where that filter was. So the next column across, task name. Do you see there's a gap all the way down the left hand side? And that's because in project they're all tabbed in and that formatting has come across into Excel. So I want to remove that. In Excel, you'd use a function called trim. So how can we do that in Power Query? Well, I highlight the column, I get a transform, and I'm going to go for under the format button there, and there are all sorts of things in here. It's worth an explore. There is a trim. So I click onto there, and there you are. They've all gone, and I've got a trimmed text on there, and I would go through and rename. Now, I'm going to ignore work for a moment. I'm going to come back to that. I've got a start date, a finish date, percent complete, and resource names. They look great. They're exactly what I want them to be. This work column is not what I want it to be. I don't want that hours on there. OK, now I need to remember it's hours, but I don't need the hours in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to click into there, and we're going to add I'm going to add a column off there based off this one, but I don't know the M code. So we're going to go with add column. I don't know what I need to do in here. I don't want to have to go and find it. So I'm going to use a really good tool called column from examples. So drop that down and go from selection. So that's the column I've got selected. Right. Now that first one there says 16 hours. So I want that answer to be 16. So I'm just going to put in the number 16 and press return. And if you look now, I'm just going to see if a zoom method is going to work. Has that worked? No one's complaining. I'm going to assume it has worked. So you can see how it's put me 16 there. No, that's not going to work on a shared screen. My apologies, guys. that transform, so it's worked out the M code. It's put in the M code up here on the left hand side. Okay, and that is it calculating it for you. So I can come up into there and I'm going to put work. Can't call it work because I've already got a column called work. So we're going to put in a column called work hours. And then I'm going to click OK. So there we are. I've got my column, but you notice it still thinks it's text. It's got an ABC in that top left hand corner. So what we're going to do is I'm going to click on that ABC and I'm going to say it's a number. Now I hadn't got half hours in there, but I could have. So I'm going to put in make it a decimal number. And there we are. It's put in that 1.2. Now I can now get rid of that work column here. What I don't want you guys to do, okay, is to come to onto here and do remove columns. That's a bad button. We don't use that button. What the button we use is we use choose columns instead. And let me show you the reason why. So when I come to choose columns here, I'm just going to take out work and I'm going to click OK. And the advantage that has is it's got a little cogwheel. If you do remove columns, what was the event I mentioned after Ignite? MBAS. It will be in the spring. MBAS is an awesome event. Looking, what does M code mean? M is just the name of the language that's being used behind the scenes. If I come into the view ribbon and go to the formula bar, this is M code at the top here. So if I click on any of the steps, I can see what the M code is at the top there. Okay. Now I normally, when I'm working in Power BI, I have it turned on, but I'm a programmer by trade. So I write M code. So that doesn't worry me too much, but it's not required, okay, for the level that we're doing here. Is there a split columns function in Power BI? Yes, there is. So I could have done that exact example using split columns. Let me just pick that task name. And I could go to split columns here by delimiter, positions, etc. So that there is all sorts of ways of doing it in there. Okay, digit to non-digit is quite a good one as well for doing that kind of thing. Okay, I think that's, yeah, that looks like I've answered those questions. So I'm going to go to my other one. The thing to check before you move away from here is to say, did I need all those columns? And have all my columns got types? Well, do you know what? The summary column there says no for everything. So I don't need that one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to my remove other columns. I'm going to click onto there and I'm going to take out summary. Bring through only the data you need. So let's just go to sheet 2 for a second. And what we're going to do here, my standard rate, the one that's here, I can do by exactly the same trick on the column by example. So I'm just going to put into there and I'm going to go for a column by example. And that top one there is 60. So I'm just going to put in 60. And I'm going to then click. Actually, I'm just going to go into there and just change that 60 to be 60.00. Just purely because I realized that what the delimiters between was slightly wrong. I want to make sure that it's going to give me decimal places if there is one. And I'm going to call that one rate. Click OK. Make it a number, decimal number. Or I could have made it a fixed decimal number as well. You could have done all sorts of things in there. And now I'm going to go with, do I need all these columns? No, I don't need all these columns. So we're going to go for on the home ribbon, we're going to go for choose columns. And I am going to unselect them all. I'll keep the resource name. I'm going to keep the group, and I'm going to keep rate. Click OK. So there we are. They're text, and number. That's great. Oh, it's called sheet 2. So let's just rename that to be resources. Okay. So all of that's done. I can come back in and correct things if I need to. So I'm going to go up to the close on the home ribbon, close and apply. So you click that. It takes you back into Power BI Desktop. It's telling you that it wants to apply some changes, but it's going to do those automatically. I didn't click that button. And it's just going to take a moment. Now to Excel, the refresh won't be too long. If you're going to a SharePoint list and all those kind of things, it's going to take longer. Okay. Off to databases, it really just depends on how fast your database is. So now on the right hand side, I can see I've got my 2 tables, I've got my resources, and I've got my tasks. Okay. And so on the top left hand corner, I've got a table there, and I can see my data if I click on the different tables. There you are. Now, back in Power Query, it only looked at the top 1,000 rows of data, but obviously when it gets brought into here, this is all your data. Should you need to go back into Power Query to change something at a later point or pick different columns or whatever, transform data is what you are looking at. Okay, so that's how you get back into Power Query. We've loaded data. The important part to check next is the relationships. And we come into here and we can see there's no relationships here at all. So what you want to know is what column in this table is going to relate to what column in this table. So I'm going to go for a resource name to resource name. Now I was really careful. All of my tasks only have 1 resource name. So if you've got more than that, you're going to have to do some other clever things. And I really haven't got time to do that in today's session. But if that's not an obvious thing to do, please somebody hit me up on Twitter or LinkedIn, and either I'll point you in the right direction, or if nobody else has written the video, I'll write the video for you. Always looking for problems that will help people out there. So that's my 2 relationships been put into there. So let's go and see how that works. So if I come into here, we're going to look at some really simple why we choose columns rather than delete. Okay, Tom, let me just quickly, my apologies, I skipped that too quickly. Let me just come back. So I'm going to show you in here, and there's also something else I forgot to mention, so good point. So I'm back in Power Query. Okay, so if anybody didn't notice, I clicked the transform data. I'm back in Power Query. I'm in my resources. The last step there says remove other columns. Let me take that out. Okay, so we've got back to all of our columns. I don't want that column, and I don't want that column. So I'm using the Control key to highlight multiple columns, right? And I'm then going to go remove columns, and I'm going to remove those columns, and they've gone. And look, I've got a remove columns step here on the right hand side, but there's no cogwheel. So if I wanted to bring back in initials, I have to come up into this code and edit it, or delete the step and redo it. That's not friendly. Okay, so instead of doing that, I come into here and I go to choose columns, and I'm going to go for my resource part there, and I'm going to go for group and rate. Okay, the other thing I forgot to mention, and I really should mention quite more loudly more often, there's a button missing that we all expect there to be in Microsoft products, the undo button. It's not there. You delete a step, you've deleted it. It's gone. Okay? So please be careful. If you want to do something, you want to try something out on a query and you're a bit worried about that, what you do is you do a right click and you do a duplicate, because that gives you a second query that you can always go and delete that one and bring this one back in again. Okay, so do that before you start doing things that might break stuff, because you can always come back in here afterwards and delete it and nobody will know that you made a backup. But if you don't do the backup, you have no way of getting it back. So does that answer your question, Tom? I hope so. It's all to do with keeping that cogwheel, and you can go back in and change the steps. So we've been in, we've done our relationships. Let's see how that works. So what I'm going to do is I am going to go for, we're going to see how it works in multiple ways. We're going to keep it really simple to begin with. I'm going to go for a list of tasks. So let's go for, well, the first thing I'm going to do, just to help you guys be able to see things, okay? I'll come back and talk about themes properly in a minute, but for the time being, I am just going to see if I can, if my themes are going to work, if my themes are in the right place. My demo theme, which just ups the fonts a little bit. I'll talk about themes a little later. Okay, so I'm going to bring in a table, and into that table, okay, so you pick your visual out your visualizations pane, and it then gives you bits to fill in. Now, table only has one values, okay? Later on, we'll have ones that have more things. So I'm going to bring in my task name. My demo theme gives me bigger fonts on tables, basically. And I'm going to bring in, let's bring in the start date as well. Now, if you don't want it to give you all the columns and start date, that will vanish after a little while. But if you've got columns that are coming up like this, you can always click on that down arrow and you can go, I don't want the date hierarchy, I want the start date. But when I get to doing the calendar in a little bit, I'll show you more of that part. So here we are. Here's a list of my tasks. Now, what I can do is I can turn around and say, well, do you know what? I don't really want to, I'm not interested in all the tasks. I'm interested in tasks relating to a particular team or a particular resource. So let's bring in a slicer. Now, slicers, they've got a little symbol down here with a little funnel on it. And what I'm going to do is, so that's got field. So it's got one box in there. So I'm going to bring in the group. And there you are, I've got two groups. I've got the externals and the internals. So if I click onto externals, there are the 3 tasks being done by external people. And if I click on internals, there's all the other tasks, okay? So it's a really good, simple way to filter it down. Now, if you, a recent update to Power BI updated these slicers. So I could now bring in resource name as well into that slicer. And now I get a hierarchy slicer so that so I can see my external resources, who they are, and my internal. So I could actually go and pick my project director and look under there, or I could pick all of my internal ones there. Okay. Slicers are really powerful and are worth getting your head around and working out what slices your users will want. What will they want to see? What will they want to filter by? Okay, so being a report designer, you really do have to understand your audience. And if that's your own team or yourself, it's easier, but you do need to understand where they're coming from, right? So that's given me a filter across, so I can filter from external and I can see what tasks are related to them. Right. How many tasks are there? Okay, that's quite a common question. So we're going to have a look at how many tasks, how many hours there are, how much has been. So one of the questions in our PowerPoint was how many hours have been completed and how many are remaining, how many work hours, those kind of things. So we're going to start with a really simple one first. We're going to start with counting our tasks. Now, we could just go with a data card and drag it in. I'm going to do it via measures. Measures have huge advantages. They're just easier to work with later on. Okay, and you can control them a lot more. So it's worth building up your measures first. Right, so a measure is a calculation. So let me explain how that works. There are lots of different ways to create a measure. Okay, there is a new measure button here on the home ribbon. There'll be one on the modeling ribbon, etc. I recommend you instead right click on the name of a table, the table where you want the measure to be, and you click new measure. And then you will get a formula bar appear. Come on, Power BI, play ball. Let's get in there. It's just taking a while. And that measure is in here. Now, let me just do my trick in here of expanding so that you guys can read it on. And let's be honest, I can read it. So it says measure equals. Now, by the way, how I zoomed in on there is I held down the control key in that formula box and then used the mouse wheel. So I'm going to call this tasks count. Now, in Power Query, we're writing in M. Here in Power BI, we are writing in DAX. Okay, data analysis expressions is, if I remember rightly, that's what DAX stands for. It's Excel with a shed load more. So, but because it's Excel, it's got some functions you'll recognize. So count A, those kind of things. So I'm going to go for count. And what we're going to count is we're going to count tasks. Now, I need to pick a column that I know has a value in it always. So all of my tasks have to have a task name. If you had a task ID column, that's quite a good one as well. Okay, so there you go. There's my count tasks. It doesn't appear anywhere on my page until I display it. So if I look over here now, on the right hand side, I've got tasks count as a measure. Now I'm going to display that in a card. So a card in the visualizations pane is shown by a little 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to click into there. And I'm going to so it asks for fields, okay, which is fascinating, especially considering it only takes one. So tasks count. So there you are. It shows you the number and it shows you which value it is. Okay. So there are 86 tasks. Now let's go and just prove that that reacts to whatever's selected. So if I go and click on my externals again, it says 6 tasks, and there are only 3. There are only 3 there showing. How bizarre! Well, that's completely confused me. That has completely confused me totally. Given that this is an example I'd probably do on a regular basis, I think count A makes a difference in Excel, but I don't think it'll make a difference here. Here's where it does, and I'm completely floored. There are 3 extra tasks that I am not seeing. Okay, I'm going to have to work out what that is, and as to why I'm getting that to come through. I will have to work on that one and work that one out. I'm going to worry about that in a moment. Yeah, I'm going to worry about that in a moment, because my demo of this I ran earlier, it was working fine. That's very weird. Okay. So I'll come back to why that's not working. And to tell you the truth, if I don't manage to answer that question, I'm gonna come back with that one on Twitter. That's gonna bug me now. But anyway, let's move on. And I want to show you some other things. Okay. Now, if I look at my tasks, and you don't seem to be able to zoom in on the, you can't zoom in on these views, which drives me nuts slightly. But on the percent complete, okay, 0% means it hasn't started. 1 means it has started. Okay, so there are the 4 values that have been set up in project. But 1%, if it's a 1, it's 100% complete. So I want to know, well, how many tasks have been completed? Okay, so we're going to create a measure based off this measure to go with how many tasks out of these tasks are complete. So we're going to go and create another new measure. So I'm going to do a right click on tasks, and I'm going to go for a new measure. Okay. And I'm going to call this completed tasks. I've just seen the time, and we are running out of time. So completed tasks. So we use a function called calculate, and calculate says take another measure or take any calculation, so an expression, and I'm going to use tasks count. Okay, and then apply a filter. So my filter is going to be from tasks percent complete equals 1. Okay, so we're going to add in, so I've added in that measure, and we're going to add in a card, and I'm going to add that measure to that card. So we've got 13 completed tasks out of my ones here. And so if into this table I bring in, no, that's not what I wanted to bring in. My apologies. I want to just bring in the percent complete, top one. That's the one we want to go for. Okay. And we can see there that there are a number that are completed. So there's some ones in there. There will be 13 of them. But if we look at this table, it's sorted alphabetically by task name, not by start date. So let me just see if we can change that to be, we're going to sort by the start date. Okay, and what it will do is, there we go. So 12th of November going backwards. Now, that's not quite what we wanted. I want to go sort ascending. Do you see there's a sort descending and a sort ascending? Distinct count instead of counts. Distinct count, if I've got 2 tasks with the same name, they would only count once. So that's the difference between distinct count and count. It counts distinct values. So if I've got 2 tasks with the same name, they wouldn't get counted twice. Okay, is the measure counting any hidden rows like summary lines? No, because do you remember we took out the summary rows, so they're not there. I am going to sit down and work out why this is afterwards, and I am then going to have to put out an explanation as to why they're there. Now, what I want to do is, and one of the questions we had was, how many late tasks have we got? Okay, so I'm just going to add another new measure very quickly. So I'm going to come into hit right click, new measure. Oops. And select it first properly. Late tasks. Okay, so this is going to be a calculate again, and we are going to go for a tasks count. Right. So if a task is late, then the task percentage complete is less than 0. And so I can put another filter by putting in a comma and put the next filter in. We're going to go for the task's finish date is before today. And there's a today function. And there we go. So I can now bring in a data card. And I'm going to put into their late tasks. And bizarrely, it's showing me no late task, but I'm sure I've got some because I deliberately put some in there. I am not having a good day, am I? There's one that's late. So let me just have a look at that measure. You obviously got that. I've obviously got that measure wrong. So one of the things about blank is if it can't find any, that's what it comes up with. And I'm just going to, so tasks count, task percentage complete is, it's not less than 0, it's less than 1. That was my mistake. Okay. And that's just working on it. So it's just doing a refresh in the top right hand corner. And there we are. I've got 4 late tasks, which is what I expected. That's a relief. When it comes to formatting, okay, I'm not going to go into a huge amount of formatting because, hey, I'm running out of time. But what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at one really quick, nice, easy thing. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but it's just to let you know that it exists. If, by the way, the formula bar stays around while you've got a measure selected. So if you just go and select on something other than that's not a measure, the formula bar will vanish. Okay. But what I want to do is I want to colour in the tasks that are late red. So let's just quickly go and do that. So let's click on that table. Select the table. And under formatting, okay, now there are all sorts of things in formatting that you can go and play with. I'm going to leave those in your capable hands to go and find. And under conditional formatting, okay, we're going to pick the task name, okay, and let's just pick its background color. So there's an off, and I can turn that on. And it will give me a box that comes up. Now, by default, it comes up with color scale. Well, that's not quite what I want in this case. What I want to do is it's based on rules, right? And I'm going to go, I don't want counting the task name. I'm going to go for 8 tasks. Now, if a task is late, it will be greater than or equal to the number of tasks that are related will be 1. Okay, it's a quick, easy one to do. And less than, and asks you for a number in there by default. So just put in a number that's never going to happen. A huge number, that'll be fine. And we're going to pick a color. So we're going to pick it in a color of red and click OK. And give it a moment just to recalculate that table. And there we are. We've got one down here that was due on the 14th of July. These are not sorted by dates. Oh, I sorted on task name, didn't I? That's my problem. So we should see about, so there we are. There's a whole batch of red ones that are in there. Right. Okay. So there are all sorts of things in here to do with being able to the ways of being able to work out who's doing which tasks. Okay. Now what I want to be able to do is I'm going to do a nice quick little measure. Okay. So I have got, let me just show you. I have got my resources have a cost column. They have a rate column, which we saw earlier, and they're assigned to tasks, and so therefore we can times the hours by the tasks. Okay, so let's go to a new page to demonstrate this, because we can then show off some visuals as well. So we're going to create a measure called cost. So let's do that part first. So right click on tasks, new measure. Now in Excel, the times that you want to be able to do, give me the total of that column times that column throughout that whole table. And for those who've ever done array formulas in Excel, they're horrible. But Power BI has some really nice ones, so it makes it a lot easier. So we're going to put this in as the cost. And that's going to equal. So let's just do a couple of returns in here, just make it easier. So we're going to use a function. By the way, new lines is shift return in here. And we're going to use SUMX. Okay. So returns the total, adds them all up, expression evaluator for each row. So we have to pick which table. So I'm going to pick tasks. And the expression we want to do. So we want the hours. So I started to type in hours. It'll find me tasks hours. And what I want to times that by, times that by the resources rate. Now I can use relationships. Okay, so the equivalent of VLOOKUP in Excel is related. So you don't have to specify the relationship and everything because it's already been created. But it'll now let you pick, well, what related column would you like? I would like the resources rate. So that closes off the related. That closes off the SUMX. So I should now be able to do me some nice visuals. So I don't like pie charts. They've given you a new version of pie charts though, okay, which I think are better. So we're going to go with our a tree map, okay. And in this tree map, what I can do is I can bring in my resource names and put that in as my group, or not apparently. And I can also bring in my cost. and put that in as my values. And there we go. We get a square. Now the size of it is purely based off the cost. So the project manager is taking up a huge amount of the project. They are £43,000, whereas your project director is 7,000, and they are the bottom one in the corner there. The quality assurance manager is the least amount. Right now, if I had done so, I don't have to create measures all the time, so I could do a tree map again to kind of compare. So I'm going to bring in my resource name, and I am going to bring in I'm just going to bring in the hours. So if we go and find work hours as the value, ticking them, it guessed where to put them, and you can see it's pretty equal. Okay, it almost matches, but actually obviously one of these guys costs more than the other, costs more than in some regard. I'm going to guess it's the contract ones. Okay, and if I brought in my filter to show me the different groups, I could show it by groups as well. Okay, right, so that was covering, so that cost is the using SumX, which is a fantastic. There's a count X as well. There's also there's an average X as well. There's all sorts of things we can do in there. There's lots of the X functions. Right. Build a calendar in 5 minutes. We can do that. We can do that. Okay. So calendars. If you have a company calendar in a table form, it's part of your data warehouse or whatever, use it. Okay. Do not go through what I'm about to do. If you don't have a calendar within your organization, you're going to have to build one. I highly recommend you talking to your DBAs if you've got any and getting them to do it, because hey, it's their job. But if not, you're going to have to do one yourself. So I'm going to put in a new table, and I'm just going to quickly take you through counting, doing this, and then we'll talk about very quick relationships. So my table here, I'm going to call it calendar because that's a good name. And in here, it asks you, well, how would you like to build it? You can do calendar where you type in the start date and end date, but for speed, we're going to go for calendar auto. Fiscal year end is which month would you like to kind of round up to? So this will go from, always go from January to December for whatever years I want. And it'll look through all my date columns in my report, look at how big a range I need. Now this project is just in this year, so my calendar is going to be only this year. Let's move across to data view and we can see it. And let's just expand up that DAX formula bar. So that gives me a calendar of things. So what we're going to do is we're going to add in a couple of months, a couple of columns. So the first, I'm not going to bother about year because actually it's only 2020. And if I was being proper, I would add year, but I'm aware of time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in a new column. Wow, it knows I'm trying to rush, so it's going slow on me. And I'm going to call this column month. Now, I don't want the number of the month. I want Jan, Feb, etc., etc. So I'm going to use the format function, and I'm going to base this off the date column. And the format I'm going to use here is just the same as Excel formatting. Remember, this is Microsoft. They're pretty consistent on these kind of things. So I can put in 3 M's. Oh, there's questions I've missed. My apologies. I've not scrolled down. Should the logic be less than 1? Thank you. I'll tell you what, I'm booking you for every single session I do, and I'm going to pronounce your name wrong. Alican. Thank you. You were right. Distinct count should solve the count. I will go and try to test that in a second. What's the process around updating? But this particular data set, I would have to copy back into that Excel, and I would have to come back in and do a refresh. if I've got it so that I've got an automated process from my project into my Excel, which is possible, or I've connected to a published project, I can set up a refresh in the project service, or I can just press the refresh button. So moving back onto my we've added new data, got to do relationships before you do anything else. Now there's a complication here, and I'm really not going to get a chance to cover it in full detail, so I'm not even going to try. I've got 2 date columns, and I need those date columns. I want to relate those date columns in different ways. So I'm going to go with the start date, and I want a relationship between that start date and my calendar. Okay, there are lots of videos out there talking about dealing with multiple dates in one table and calendars, and there's lots of different techniques out there to use it. So I'm going to keep to it really being really simple. I'm just caring about tasks starting. So what I can do is I can come back into my report. We're going to go for a new page just so I can show what's going on. And I'm going to bring in a column chart because, hey, we haven't seen any of those yet. And I'm going to put in my month across the bottom. And I'm going to put in a task count. So this is what tasks are starting in the month. Okay. And there's my chart. It looks great. Okay. And I think, okay, fine, but actually it's not great because, let's be honest, that's not the order the month's come in. But what it's done is it's done it by number order. So I'm going to go on the 3 dots, sort by month, September, October, November, but then there's June. That doesn't make sense either. So let's come back into here and let's go sort ascending. Okay, and there we are. It's now put it in alphabetical order. August, July, June. It's alphabetical. So that doesn't work either. So we're going to go back into our data. This is the important part I wanted to show you because it's an important feature to understand. So I'm going to bring in a new column. And I'm going to call this month num. And this is just I'm just going to use the function month. And it's based off the date. And so that will give me the numbers for January 1, February 2. Okay. And then what we do is we go to the month column. Okay. And under the column tools ribbon, there is a sort by column. So click onto there. I don't want it to sort it by itself. I want it to sort by month num. Okay. And now if I come back into here, there we are, June, July, August, September, October, November, right? So that shows me the months that are going there. Okay. And I can bring in, so I'm going to quickly go and I just want to show you one thing of, so if I go for cost by resources, let's just take that visual for a second and copy it and paste it. It'll paste it in the wrong place, but never mind. So when you've got multiple visuals on one page, okay, they will react to each other. So if I go into October there you can see which areas there. I can click onto September and there you are, it's all the project managers, nobody else is doing anything. Back in July, we've got the project director and the project manager, etc. So that's how different visuals react to each other. So that's taking in, so when you've got your multiple visuals on there, it's not only slices, but also just charts to each other. How are we doing? How are we doing? The task of, oh, wow. Ali Khan, you're good at this game. I'll go and have a look at that in a second. Okay, right. So So publishing this up to the service, you can pick which space you want to put it into, workspaces you want to put it into if you have a license. Okay, you need to either be publishing to a premium space, which means your company has to have gone premium, or you need to be publishing up to or you need to have a pro license. Okay, so what I'm just going to go and do, I'm just going to go and do one check. Any other questions? If people want to put them in there, I'll do a couple of minutes of answering some questions. What are we looking at? Develop organization structure is 24th of the 7th. 24th of the 7th. Wow. You're right. Because that is before today. That is before today. I am going to have to look at that one. Wow. So much safe me bringing some clean data in to show you guys. Wow, I'm going to have to work out why that one is not there. Okay, I am really going to have to work out that one because there are the 4 late tasks. But you're right, that one there should be a late task as well. And you pointed out another one as well. I'm going to have to work that out. I am going to have to work that out. My apologies. I will put that in my post, as in the post that I do to support this session, as to what I have got wrong. And what I will do is I will put a link to this report, and I will put in the changes that I have had to make it work. Okay. The one thing I'm going to do one more thing, and then I realize I have gone over the hour, so I am then going to, which is bad of me. I am then going to do a summarization. I just want to show you one thing. If I go and click something where these tasks are not here, I'm getting blanks instead. The last thing we are going to do is to fix that. So the way you fix that is I go back to my original calculation, my tasks count, and I come into here and I put in a function called coalesce, and coalesce will return me the first non-blank value. So if that returns a blank, what do I want returned? I want a 0 returned, because if it's blank, it should be 0 tasks instead. So I do that. That fixes that one. I press return. Give it a minute to recalculate. And there we are. We get. Oh, I've completely broken it. Wow. I'm gonna have to fix that one. I haven't got time to fix it now. I want to, as much as I would love to, I am going to move away from that. Wow, I really have upset the demo gods today, and I've got some things wrong in there. I will try out the distinct count, and I will give you guys an answer. I'm gonna go back and find my presentation. Where did I put it? I really have lost it. Let me just go and find my presentation. I've lost the desktop. I am going to have to fire up PowerPoint again and just put myself back into that demonstration. I don't know why that's gone red. Yeah, I totally agree, Ali Khan. That one should be there. Camilla, I will put it up. I will put it up. Late task should be linked to end date and not start date. Yeah, PG, I totally agree that you need to work out where you're going to link them and how that's going to work. Okay. You're holding down the control key. No, I'm not. Oh, is that my problem? Is my control key stuck? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scroll down. Okay. Resources that are out there. Gynacube. Gynacube are amazing. Adam and Patrick do such a stunning job. Their daytime job is working for Microsoft, but the Gynacube is done completely outside of that. They spend far too many hours the weekend doing it. This weekend, I know they spent at least 2.5 hours online doing it live. SQL BI guys, the Italians, they are the DAX gurus. They are amazing and stunning, and what they do, they're incredibly good. And if the Italians say this is the way to do it, this is the way to do it. They have, since lockdown started, they have been producing videos because they can't do their traveling. They normally travel the world and do DAX courses, but they are 5-minute little videos. So you can see there's less than 3 minutes, 5 minutes are absolutely brilliant. And to tell you the truth, if I get really stuck with the calculations there, I'm going to get a Marco. I'm going to ask him to fix it for me. Okay. Please hit me up on YouTube, not on YouTube. Well, actually, I'm on YouTube as well, but hit me up on Twitter and LinkedIn, and I will answer some questions. And I'm going to work out what on earth went wrong with today's session. Feedback. That QR code will take you to Reactor Survey. 8014 is the event code. I highly recommend looking at the other events that are on at the Reactor. They're stunning, and the other reactors in Europe, because they're in our time zone. They've also got some, but of course London is the best. I'm going to stop talking, and really concerned about the fact that my project didn't work. I'm just checking that I have got everything. Oh, wait a second. Okay, so if there's anybody still left there, thank you very much for staying over the end. I apologize, I'm 12 minutes longer than I should be.
Hi, Laura. It's
back to you, Emma.
Yes, thank you so much, Laura, for such a great presentation. We've had some really good feedback just coming through now, so thanks so much as well to all of the attendees for your time today, for joining the session, for engaging with the session. It's been great to have everyone. And as Laura said, we've got plenty more events on Meetup, and hopefully we'll get Laura on to do another session at some stage in the near future.
Let me know what you would like in Power BI, guys. Okay, so I've done one that's on sales, I've done one that's on tasks. If you've got a different data set that you would like a Power BI introduction on, let us know, because I'm perfectly happy to deal with another data set. That's why we did tasks this time. Sorry, Emma.
No, that's a great point to mention. Any feedback on what you would like, please do let us know, so you can reach out through the Reactor London meetup, and we would love to get your feedback on what you would like next, and that would be great. But I will let everyone go for this evening. Enjoy your evening. Thanks again for joining, and please fill out the survey if you've time. It shouldn't take more than a couple of minutes, so that would be great. And hopefully see you all next time.
Take care, guys.